Are you ready to launch your career to new heights? Visit careers.dish.com/technician now and uncover a world of exciting opportunities waiting just for you. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, Dish has everything you need to thrive. Don't wait any longer to kickstart your next opportunity. Apply today and join the Dish family where innovation meets opportunity. Visit us online at careers.dish.com/technician. Your future starts now.
This episode is brought to you by Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to independent film. Inside, you'll find tools, tips, and tricks vetted by industry professionals, independent films that will inspire your creativity, filmmaking events where you can rub elbows with filmmakers just like you, and so much more. The best part of it all? It's absolutely free. All you have to do is go to www.bonsai.film/subscribe, and within a few clicks, you'll be part of our newsletter community. Again, that's www.bonsai.film/subscribe to get Indie Insights, a free bi-weekly newsletter from Chris and Nick at Bonsai Creative. You're listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creatives in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
Hi, I'm Sophie Holland and I'm a casting director. Things you might know me for are things like The Witcher and Wednesday. And I'm currently working on a couple of new things. So obviously we have season 4 of The Witcher that I've started. And I'm also working on a film called Heads of State with Idris Elba and John Cena.
Sophie Holland, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it is our absolute pleasure. And I have to tell you, I have so many notes here. I really wasn't sure where we could even start because there's so many different places we could start and so many cool things you're working on. Just last night, I read in Q Magazine, which is Netflix's sort of insider industry magazine they send out. I was just reading this entire spread they have on Jenna Ortega from Wednesday. And they were talking about the costume designer, but I was hoping to find maybe that they said something about you too.
They never talk about the casting directors. That's the ongoing joke.
Yeah. We're definitely going to address that today and get your honest opinion on why that is. Yes. But before I get too deep into the conversation, which is, easy for me to do and easy for you to do, I think, let me make this official by reading a little bit from your bio. And like I always say, this is the internet. So if anything needs to be amended or updated, just let me know at the end.
Okay.
Sophie Holland is a UK-based casting director working predominantly in high-end TV, film, theater productions across the world. Sophie Holland Casting is considered one of the most exciting casting offices in the UK. With her incredible expertise and years of experience, Sophie has casted some of Netflix's most watched shows, including Wednesday, Netflix's record-breaking series that propelled Jenna Ortega into stratospheric stardom. This critically acclaimed Tim Burton adaptation has been watched worldwide for over 1.2 billion hours. Wow. Holland has just been announced to be working with Burton on his next feature film, soon to be announced. Sophie is the casting director for the epic TV series The Witcher, which, by the way, in its first 28 days had 462.5 million hours of viewing in its first 28 days. Is based on the popular fantasy saga by, how do you pronounce this author's name? Is it Andrzej Sapkowski?
Sapkowski, yeah.
Sapkowski, thank you. for keeping me from sounding like an idiot. And boasting a dynamic cast led by Henry Cavill, who's awesome, by the way. And Sophie also cast the prequel series The Witcher: Blood Origin, starring Academy Award winner Michelle Yeoh. Some of her other projects include the musical horror picture Anna and the Apocalypse, great title, The Cherry with Tom Holland, and Marvel blockbuster Thor: The Dark World, and You. Other recent TV work includes the chart-topping fantasy Shadow and Bone, Peripheral, Young Wallander. Is that how you pronounce it? Wallander?
Wallander, yeah.
Wallander? Yeah. Mediba with Lawrence Fishburne. That's incredible. The Indian Detective with Russell Peters, and the UK casting for Seth MacFarlane's Fox series, The Orville, which I've heard incredible things about. Lastly, in film, Holland undertook the UK casting for Cherry, A24's The Kill Team with Alexander Skarsgård, and Lionsgate's Down a Dark Hall with Uma Thurman. Wow.
I mean, you've done some
bio.
research.
What?
That's my whole resume.
That's your whole life.
That's my whole life.
No. Well, I want to get into that because, you've done a lot, obviously, in film, and we're going to dig into that because the experiences you've had are just incredible. But you don't have a lot on record about sort of your origin story to, take it into Thor: The Dark World or whatever. And so I'm just curious, was there a moment that you can remember growing up that you knew you were going to live a creative life?
No, I definitely did not think I was able to do that, to be perfectly honest. So my mum has, there were 5 of us originals growing up. I have a twin brother as well. And truly, I didn't really know anything about the industry. I thought for a long time that I wanted to be an actor, because I don't know what your upbringing was like, but all I knew about the industry, really, truly, all I knew about it was that, you could be an actor, which sounded amazing to me. I mean, walking the red carpet, having people think you're special, that sounded to me like the absolute epitome of what I would want my life to be. It sounded great, especially when you are in a family of 5 kids and you're down the bottom of the thing and you're vying for kind of attention and everything else. That felt like a really lovely way of getting validation. Or being a director, and but again, equally sounded absolutely lovely, but not quite as glamorous. So I didn't really know anything about the other things that you could be until much later of me trying to be an actor unsuccessfully. And then it just wasn't working out for me. That was a very difficult career to get into. So, but I tried for many years. I tried.
Yeah. And made me think about why is it that so many people want to be an actor? I think you touched on it a little bit in your answer there, but it is interesting what you say about sort of the need for acceptance and to know that you're taking up space in the world in a positive way. I mean, what is your sense of it now in retrospect, having cast so many actors? Why is this becoming the predominant field outside of YouTuber for young people?
Yeah. You mean to be an actor?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it is for validation. It's funny, isn't it? And I've always been drawn to the stories where, Harry Potter is the perfect example, where you are a normal boy overlooked by everyone around you, and then you get to be the chosen one. You get to go and be the center of attention and be special. And I feel like everybody, not everybody, maybe that's speaking out of turn, but a lot of people want to be special, don't we? We don't want to be average or run of the mill. We want somebody to come up to us and say, yes, you're special. Here's some validation. We validate you. We think you're amazing, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I feel like you can have that moment if you're a successful actor. You can literally walk down a red carpet with people calling your name, taking pictures because of your talent. That must be extraordinary, mustn't it?
Yeah. I think it's sort of accelerated by, I guess, media and social media as well.
Social media, where, yeah, of course, where we love watching people. The pandemic was a perfect example of that. I became obsessed with they did interviews at people's houses, to famous people's houses, and you'd see the background of their kitchen, and you think oh my God, you have an entire fridge dedicated to champagne. What? That's wild. But then also it does separate you, doesn't it? You go, well, I don't have that. I don't have a fridge full of champagne. I don't even have a bottle of champagne. I have a bottle of
No.
Prosecco from my local supermarket. Like, what have you done to get that? Like, you become obsessed. It's very easy, isn't it, to kind of compare yourself to other people. And I guess it's true what they say, like, comparison is the death of art. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, yeah. It's similar to another one I've heard, which is comparison is the enemy of happiness.
Oh, yes.
So this idea that when you compare, it's impossible for you to be happy.
Oh my God, I completely agree with that. And like, I literally found myself like yearning to have a fridge full of champagne, and that's just not my life. You know what I mean? So it's a dangerous, slippery slope.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for us not to compare because we want to know where we stack up. I mean, that's just really, what it's all about. We just want to know how close are we to whatever goal we have, whatever.
Or how far away.
Yeah. Or how far away. Yeah.
Yeah.
You asked me earlier how I was brought up, and for me, it wasn't that my mother or father were in entertainment per se. It was just that I have memories of my mom being obsessed with celebrity.
Right.
Obsessed is a strong word. I probably shouldn't use that word, but she loved soaps, and she loved the Oscars, and she would throw an Oscar party, an Academy Award party every year, just as a lay person, in their home with the family, a way to bring us all together and have fun. So I always viewed the entertainment business as something that brought me together with my family, something that brought me closer to my mother. Yeah. Right. Like we were able to share that space together and be on not equal footing from an authoritative standpoint, hierarchically, but it's like we were both enjoying it for the same reason. And so I am curious with you, how were you brought up? Like what exposed you to even thinking about being an actor?
Yeah. And I think just to pick up on your point, really, for a long, long time, I had a chip on my shoulder. I think honesty is always the best thing, the best way to go. I think I had it, we came from a very working class family. It was a single parent raising 5 kids, and we lived with with my grandparents in their sort of ex-council house. And I feel like, and then we moved schools, and we lived quite far away from the school. And like, it was always just like, I never felt like I had enough or I fit in. And I wanted more. I wanted to be prettier and more popular than I was. And I always felt like I wasn't those things. And then many, many years later, when I was studying to be an actor at a place called City Lit in Covent Garden over here, which is basically an amazing place where you can go and you do 3 days a week rather than 5. But it means that you can pay to live if you can't afford to go to drama school or anything like that. But I realized I was never going to be anybody else. I was always going to be me. And like, that sounds like it was a bit like, oh no, I was always going to be me. But actually what I realized is like, I can't be someone else, but I can be a better version of who I am every single day. And that completely shifted my kind of point of view. I was like, oh, I'm never going to be Nina Gold or Shaheen Baig or, Gina J or any of these other amazing, brilliant casting directors, but I can be Sophie Holland. I can be a better version of myself every day. I can try and kind of grow that art of it. And I just realized with acting, it was just, it didn't matter if I was good enough or not. Like, we will never know. Couldn't get through the door, Chris. Like, no one would see me for an audition. So, I mean, listen, I could have been the next Jennifer Lawrence. I don't know. We will never find out. But the truth was, like, I just couldn't get in. But then that impacted then the way in which now I kind of move forward as a casting director in terms of like the way I want to work, basically.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you sharing that about sort of your upbringing. I think one of the things I relate to you most is your sort of working class upbringing. That I grew up modestly as well. We weren't starving, but we understood that you weren't going to be given anything. And you had to be tough.
Yes.
And to this day, if you want to see me run to the door, just start whining.
Yeah.
And I will be out of there. And I don't know what that says about me. Sophie, honestly, I maybe I need to see a therapist. Like, I don't know if that makes me a bad person, because I don't have that muscle because of the way I grew up.
Yes. And I see what you're saying. And actually, I think what it's given me, or one of my sort of the biggest tool in my box, which seems to have developed kind of accidentally because of that upbringing, is that I have a natural buoyancy. So you can knock me down and it will hurt, but I will get back up. I just will. Like, I'm tenacious. And I think that comes from that. Like, you're never going to get handed a single thing. You are going to have to work for it. And I think my mum was really smart in that. And I don't think she even realized the sort of like how big this statement was. But she was like, if you speak better, I know that's not good English. If you sound posher than you are, it will open doors. It's as simple as that. If you aren't that person, you can blend in and like you'll have more opportunities. And I don't think she really understood how much the class divide over here in the UK, at least, can affect you. But I think she understood it on like a molecular level. And then that's what she told me, you know, because I'm not the smartest person. I'm not academic in any way, shape or form. I didn't go to university. Like, everything I've learned has been through kind of on the job, so to speak. Like, casting, there is now a course you can do, but like, it's on the job training. And I feel like, you know, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for those things that I do have. And I think it comes from being a working class girl, actually.
Yeah, your mom was spot on. There's this idea, you know, in business where you have to be able to communicate in order to sell the math. Yes. So you can be great at math, but no one's going to buy your math that gets you, you know, that product you built, if you can't first have someone speak on your behalf or speak on your own behalf. And when you have both, you're kind of unstoppable. And that's where you kind of see some of the titans of at least tech and film today. They're people who have an engineering mind, but can communicate really, really well. So I completely agree with that. And just in case listeners aren't sure and you haven't picked up on her accent, Sophie is in the UK right now. So she will bring up places and experiences from that POV, just so everybody knows. I'm curious, you made this jump from acting to casting director, and it seemed to be a pretty wise decision based on everything that we researched. I'm curious, though, within that jump, were you mentored by anyone in casting when you first got started? And if so, who was it, and what was the key wisdom they passed on to you?
No, I wasn't really. And do you know what? It was a much too late, but a brilliant American agent once said to me, once I'd gone out to LA to try and hustle for work as a casting director in my own right. So I'd made that, literally just made that jump from associate to trying to start my own business. You know, he said to me, like, you can see the casting directors who give birth to the next generation, and you can see the ones that don't. And which one do you want to work with? And actually, like, I'd wish I'd had that advice when I'd started in the industry, because to find a casting director who mentors you into being able to start your own career is a very rare, special thing. And I really don't feel that I'd ever had that relationship. I had worked for, there were two casting directors in particular that I thought were, I mean, the most extraordinarily talented casting directors. One was called Susie Figgis, who was Tim Burton's casting director, ironically. I'd worked for her briefly, and I just thought she was magic. And another one was the late Marilyn Johnson, who did lots of British TV, and probably you might not have heard of her, but she, again, just fiercely talented. But I'd never had anybody who had said, like, this, I mean, you learn on the job, so there's always like, this is how you do it, but there's never anyone who goes, okay, come in, let me nurture you, let me show you how this works and why and everything else. So I feel like I'd missed out on that. And then as a consequence, when I went out on my own, I mean, I was on the back foot, just kind of like making it up, you know what I mean? Like trying to kind of, I didn't really know what I was doing. Like, it was a very steep learning curve because of that. And in many ways, I look back and I think, I probably could have done with a few more years experience under my belt. But like, once you jumped off the cliff, you've done it, haven't you?
Yeah. It's interesting because, you know, that mentorship can open doors for you, get you in the right room, get you the warm invites, give you sort of a safety net as you walk the tightrope of your career.
Yeah.
But when you do it your way, where you're climbing up the side of the mountain with you know, a puma chasing you from behind, you build a muscle and a callus that, you know, will never be taken from you. So you if you can make it, even though it's harder, if you can make it up the mountain, then you're actually better than the person, in my mind, better off than the person that got mentored.
Or you certainly are stronger.
Yeah, you're stronger.
I guess. I'd not thought about it like that, but you're absolutely right. In many ways, it was probably a gift that I just jumped into the fire and survived. I think, you know, it certainly made me tougher. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. This might be a left turn. And if it is, okay, that's what we do in the Make It podcast. But can you talk about your Lawrence Russell videos and how you use them and how the concept got started?
Well, oh my gosh, so that's hilarious. So Lawrence Russell, I just literally been watching his Market Casty Cast videos, and I'd always commented on them, and my husband and I had watched them together. So he is somebody who impersonates a casting director, but sometimes some of the conversations he has, I was literally like, are you in my office? Like, what is happening? So funny. And then so anyway, he approached me and he was like, do you fancy doing a collab? And I was like, I mean, I would love to so much. Yeah. And so he wrote these kind of sketches and he sent them over, and he was like, pick 4 or whatever it was. And then I roped the team into being involved, and they just absolutely loved the idea. But I think he's an absolute genius. And I find that the root of his sketches, I find they're basically my everyday life. Brilliant.
Where can we watch these videos?
You can watch these videos on his and my Instagram page. So if you want to find me, I'm at SHC Casting, which is a story behind that, because obviously the name of the company is Sophie Holland Casting, but I've misdone it on Instagram now. So it's like SHC Casting. It doesn't really make any sense, but it's done now. Can't change it.
Yeah. So Sophie Holland Casting.
Sophie Holland Casting.
all good. Well, we have a similar situation. There's a gentleman that lives near you, actually, that owns the handle Bonsai Creative, and then owns bonsaicreative.com. And he's a lovely gentleman. And we've actually recently talked not too long ago about this issue. And he's just going to sit on it, and he's just going to wait, and he's just going to wait until we pay him, you know, a crazy amount of money for the rights to all these things. So we are _ Bonsai Creative, thanks to a gentleman across the pond who just sitting on it, just waiting.
You're just waiting until you could want to pay him the big bucks. I mean, I salute that. Fair enough. You know?
Yeah, no, it's true story, Sophie. Like when we first talked to him in 2014, 2015, there was one price, and the price has gone up. The better we do, the more expensive it's going to be.
Listen, I want to ask, because I think your listeners will want to know, what is the price currently, Chris?
He wanted over 10 grand just for the domain. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start a GoFundMe page. Yeah. We'll explain the situation. Yeah. We'll see if we can get people to put some money in a pot so that you can get the domain that you want.
Yeah, I think that's what we have to do, because I think that back in the day he wanted like $750, and I'm like, golly, just buy early. for God's sakes, anyone listening, if the price is expensive now, it's going to be more later. Buy early.
You want $750?
I think so.
Oh, yeah, you should have paid. Yeah, you should have paid, Chris. Yeah. That's inflation for you.
But back then, I was like, that's outrageous. I just paid $6 for, bonsai.film. So, I'm not paying $750 for it. But now it seems like I should have went back and did it. What are the 1-to-1 meetings? 1-to-1.
Oh, 1-to-1 meetings.
Yeah. Talk about that process.
Yeah, that was so. We literally just had work that all of the productions were shutting, and we were absolutely terrified of what that meant. We had no idea what that meant, much like everybody else. And so my brilliant associate, my right-hand girl, Faye Timby,
Shout out to Faye Timby.
Shout out to the Tims.
Yep.
She called me one night and she was like, this is crazy, but she was like, I just want to do something to support the industry, because I imagine if we're afraid, then everybody else is afraid as well. And I was thinking like maybe we could offer some generals to actors. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such an amazing idea. And then we had some friends at We Audition, shout out to them as well, who said that we could host these meetings, these general meetings on their site. And then what happened was we did like an hour a day, basically, where we'd say like, today we're going to meet actors who were also parents with kids. So all the parents would come on and we'd get through as many of those as we could. And then all of these other creators wanted to get involved. So we'd have showrunners and directors and all sorts of people. Like, so we'd pair up and then we'd give one-to-ones, like Lauren Hisrich, the showrunner of The Witcher, also did a session, etc., etc. Loads of casting directors from all over the world. And it genuinely kept me sane. First of all, it gave my day structure so that I would do an hour a day. Normally, I think it was like between 4 and 5. It means I got to talk to actors all over the world that I would never normally have had the privilege of meeting. And then we actually managed to cast some of them in like the subsequent things that we did when we came out with the pandemic. So it was, that's what the one-to-ones were.
I really love that idea. And it's quite novel. I'd love to get into sort of the dirty details of being a casting director. Lots of people who may want to be a casting director listening to this, also certainly several actors. There is a quote that you had that I thought was fascinating. It might be a good way to sort of launch into this series of questions, which is that you had mentioned that you tried to act and it wasn't working. And someone told you that, if you want fame, be an actor. If you want power, be a casting director. And then you realize that no one actually has the power. So what made you realize that no one has power?
I don't know if there was a moment. The more I get to know the industry, the more I realize that two things. First of all, that it is an organism that exists completely symbiotically with everybody else. That's the first thing. That's the art side of things, where you need the best people at their jobs to make something work. That's the first thing. The second of all is this is an industry that is largely unregulated. Is that the word?
Yep.
Yeah. So there's problems that come with that. So what you have is this sort of ever moving kind of like organism, basically. And because it ever moves, it never really gives anybody authority. You all literally take steps together. So, for example, I might find somebody that I think is fantastic. I mean, the perfect example of this is Anya Chalotra in The Witcher. But it takes a process to convince other people to come along with me, especially when you're looking at talent, for example, who's unproven, like she hadn't done it very much at that point. You know what I mean? So then it's about, eventually you never feel like it's you have the power. It's really about convincing people to come along with you. And then you'll never, as a casting director, you'll never have praise for that. You'll never be praised. Like, you're not part of the casting announcements. You don't get to walk to the carpet. No one remembers you at the wrap party. It's like so you operate as a casting director. You're a hunter, but you operate in the dark. Nobody really knows. And I know this is a segue, and feel free to cut this out. But like today, I was invited to a screening of The Little Mermaid.
Oh, awesome!
And The Little Mermaid, what an extraordinary piece of filmmaking, but also in terms of the casting, how revelatory is that going to be for children watching that? A new kind of look, we're looking at a black Ariel, the things that will do for, the next generation of people wanting to be involved in the industry is absolutely huge. And they mentioned everyone, the sound designer, the editor, the costume designer, the actors, and they never once on this sheet mentioned casting. And I'm like, are you kidding? Are you kidding that that's the only department that you don't mention? That is wild to me. Yeah. And honestly, it pisses me off.
Yeah,
like, how can you ignore this?
it really is a skill set, and I know it firsthand on our movie, Another Version of You, which is a great movie in its own right. But there was an opportunity that we had sort of in the middle of it before we had shot the rest of the movie. We sort of shot a few scenes in France. We had shot a few scenes in Iceland, and we were going to do the rest after that. But someone close to, I think, J.J. Abrams had got a whiff to the script and loved it, but they wanted us to scrap everything we shot so far, get this particular casting director, and recast the whole movie. And it would have destroyed every friendship that we had in the movie at the time.
Of course.
And so we said no, but by saying no, we also lost that opportunity. You know what I mean? And so that's how powerful casting is. Like it meant that much, where it's like, I love this script, but without, this casting director and then the people that she picks, we're out. And so we didn't even go down the rabbit hole with that, because we just weren't going to lose those people. And I'm glad we didn't, because all those people are still very, very close to me today, and in this community that I live in film. But that's a really tough choice, and it speaks to the power of casting. And I should say this: I know that you don't get to walk the red carpet, and you're not given the credit you deserve, and we are going to actually address that in this conversation, because I do find that kind of curious. But at the end of the day, you do have the power to start, in many cases, sometimes even end a career. You are a gatekeeper in that way. So how do you keep yourself from hitting a tipping point with power, where it's kind of gone to your head, or you're using it in the wrong way?
Yeah. And I think what you've just talked about is exactly it. So you try to navigate this industry, and somebody makes you offers, and you could go down that path. But I think the most important thing is that you come back to yourself and you think, who do I want to be when I look in, who do I want to see when I look in the mirror every day? Yeah. And who am I doing this for? And like, you had a point there, you could have absolutely forsaken those people, and you could have like hit the big time, Hollywood calling, you had the potential to make millions, and for whatever is in your heart, you say no. And I think, I'm never sure I'm ever going to have that opportunity come knocking, but I'm doing this for several very specific reasons. I work in casting for several very specific reasons. And the moment that feels like I've turned away from that is the moment that I'm not going to be me anymore. And that's the moment I walk away. Yeah.
That's great. The only, and you would have to probably look at that person a few days or a few weeks in the mirror to even recognize that you've shifted and changed into something else. Yeah. Because it doesn't seem like the kind of thing you would know right away.
No. And I think, and listen, I'm lucky. I have a husband who, keeps me grounded, and he asks me very specific questions, and like, he's never really going to let me, I think, become I don't think he would tolerate me being someone that I'm not, or, you know what I mean? Changing it. But also, what really happened to me, and what I find incredibly grounding, is that I was lucky enough to have a baby girl. Well, she's 5 now, but really everything I do is because of her, or like I see the world in a very specific way because of her. Mm-hmm. And so like, she really is my sort of like my North Star in a way, and she keeps me honest. They both do. They keep me honest. So really, and I honestly think, Chris, that like the rest of it isn't real. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yes, I want the recognition. I want the validation of walking down the red carpet at something I have cast. Yeah, I want that. I'm not going to lie. Like that, I feel like I feel like, casting directors deserve it. I think they deserve that acknowledgement for what they do, for literally representing the world in certain ways. I think it's an incredibly powerful position that they have. But also it's not real. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. Rob Lowe talked about this recently, about this idea that there are a lot of actors that torture themselves. Like, oh, should I take that role? I only play bad guys, but this isn't a bad guy. Or I only play good guys, and now they want me to play a bad guy. Or I only play this kind of role, that kind of role. And it's like, he said, it's all bullshit. It's like, it's not real. Just like, the question is, what can you bring to that role?
Yeah.
The question is, can you make it real? Because if so, it's not going to matter. No one's going to care. Like the things that, like, people move on. Like there's a lot of competition for everyone's attention.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your process from start to finish as a casting director. So can you walk this audience through, we mentioned Lawrence Russell videos, but can you walk us through a day in the life of Sophie Holland at casting director?
Of course. Yeah. Or at least I'll give a sort of like simplified version of exactly what a casting director does and what our process is. So we will get scripts, and what will happen is that we will take that apart, look at the roles individually, and we'll sort of talk about what they need. So what's in the script that they need to do? Like, do they need to sword fight, ride a horse? Do they need to be funny? Do they need to have depth of emotion? Do they need to look a certain way? And then we'll start to write a breakdown of like what's on the script. And then we'll add in what I want to have on top of that. So like how I want to maybe flesh that out, or what I want that to symbolize in the world that we're in, or how we can kind of get actors that will add layers underneath that, just by like, maybe you have the role of a queen, but I might want to be somebody who's working class. I think that representation might be important, blah, blah, blah. So then we'll build a kind of a description of what we're looking for. And then we'll do one of two, or maybe both of the things, where we either send it out to agents and we have agents make suggestions, or we might do lists of actors that we think would be like, you know, the dream, basically. And then we'll kind of whittle those down until we have what I call selects. So those selects, I mean, I'm quite selective about those things. So then it will be finding those people I think are absolutely brilliant. And then it will be basically me convincing everybody else that I'm right. We'll try and hire them. And it's like brick by brick by brick, character by character by character. The idea is that eventually you will build a whole world in that way.
I love that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And if you ever see me looking down, it's because I'm writing copious notes about little cool things you say, like the word selects. I like the idea of that. I think to the outside person too, and to some actors, especially actors who aren't successful in the audition room or aren't successful as casting directors, they might look at the work and say, well, what makes a casting director good in the first place? Why couldn't I just replace you and sit down in your chair and do just as good of a job? So can you just explain what makes a good casting director? And does the casting director make the actor, or does the actor make the casting director?
So I don't know. It depends, I guess, who you ask, because honestly, I think there are good casting directors and I think there are bad casting directors. And ultimately, they are artists in their own right. And so that opinion is based on, you know, it is just an opinion based on what your taste is, etc. But casting directors are hired for their taste. And that's as individual as any artist painting a picture. So for actors, it's not necessarily, well, look, 99% of the time, it's because you find somebody you think is a better fit for the role. That's the truth. Right. That's the truth of why you might not get the job. The other truth would be that not actors are brilliant actors. Any actors aren't going to be perfect at every role they go for. That's another truth, you know. And the other thing is that actors grow and they change. Different things are going on in their life that inform the decisions that they make. So it literally is an ever moving thing. And then not only that, but like every year you have thousands of new actors coming into the industry, thousands leaving, you know what I mean? So it's a constant shifting thing. And also, look, the other truth is we watch hundreds of actors every single day. Right. And that's our focus. And you would hope, much like with a hairdresser, for example, that you would hope that somebody who's been cutting hair for a year is going to be better than somebody who is only cut hair for a week. And that's because the more you do it, the better you get. But ultimately, the talent is just taste. And I don't think that is something that you can teach. In the same way that I thought Marilyn Johnson and Susie Figgis were exceptional casting directors, their taste was their own.
Yeah.
And to my mind, it was flawless and undeniable, but other people might have different opinions.
You know, it's interesting. That's a talk track that I have about taste.
Yeah.
I haven't if taste can be taught, I haven't seen it.
No.
What I have seen is someone be trained to pretend, I guess. Like, so you can train someone to say, this is good red wine.
Yeah.
And then they'll drink it and they'll think it's terrible. They'll think it's like, you know, a dreck. And they'll say, oh, I taste blackberries. I taste, you know, and they can just regurgitate the language of good taste back at you because they know that that's supposed to be good, even though they don't like it.
Yeah.
So that you can teach. I think you can teach like, oh, I'm going to say that XYZ movie is great.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows that it's great. I hate, but deep down inside, they don't know what the big fuss is about. Like they don't. Yeah. They're like, what's great about this?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an entire industry of pretenders. I think it's like, there's so many. But I remember being in the room with Marilyn Johnson once, and we'd gone over to Ireland. I was her assistant at the time, very, very young. It was early in my career. And like, we'd been recording this guy, and she didn't ask him to do it again. She didn't know him. And he walked out, and I was like, oh, she must think he's dreadful. And like, she turned to me and she was like, that boy is going to be a star. And I was like, oh. And it was like, I didn't see it. I wasn't paying attention. And then it turned out many, many years later that boy was Jack Rayner. And I'm like, she was right. She knew it. She knew it. The second he walked in the room, she knew it. She just knew it. Like her finger was on the pulse. You know what I mean? And I feel like some people see it. Like it literally, like when I see somebody now in the room and like when I'm paying attention and I get goosebumps on my arm. Like I know it. I just know it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's those moments that I live for. Like they are the best moments of my career. Like when you find somebody, when you know they're going to be special, you feel like a jewel collector, like you found a diamond.
Yeah. I love doing that.
It's it's the best thing. And everyone can look at Gary Oldman and say, well, diamond, yeah, obviously he's a diamond. Everyone knows that. But it's finding those new people and knowing that they're going to have these amazing careers because what they have is real. Is like it's the best.
Exactly. Like I famously almost got a divorce because over Triangle of Sadness because
we need this, I'm afraid.
I almost disowned my entire family that watched that with me and that didn't like it. I'm like, who are you people?
What? Why can't you see this?
Yeah. And then having to defend Wes Anderson, which he doesn't need me to defend him, but it's just kind of like people who can't watch his movies or people who like didn't make it through Tar. I'm like, come on. What are we doing? I'm not having this debate with you. I'm not having it. And we're not friends anymore, but no, I'm not that harsh, but I totally relate so much to what you're saying. And I do think there is that, you use this word a few times, symbiotic sort of nature of the business, because yes, you cast Jenna Ortega and gave her that opportunity that was big, but she also had to pay you back by having a great performance. And if she went on the show and was not good, then that would have affected your career potentially.
Well, I mean, absolutely. And you know what, like I would also, I mean, I have to give credit where it's due. First of all, it was John Patsadera that found Jenna Ortega. I mean, he was based in the US and he was catching all the girls. And so he knew, and that's the other thing, like John Patsadera is an absolutely brilliant casting director. He's the real deal. He knows what he's doing and he's kind and he's generous and he's also very clever. And when they were, looking for Wednesday, he had been tracking her ever since the beginning. So he knew, but I also have to give other credit where it's due. And that is like, Alan Miles, the showrunners and the writers of Wednesday have written these scripts that were fresh and brilliant. So that we knew the story of Wednesday, we knew the story of the Addams family, and they brought up this sort of program that appeals to everyone in the family. And I think that's the the real sort of, the dip test is like everyone could watch it, everyone could enjoy it.
Yeah.
It was also like, it just rode that line of like, oh, it's horror and we're really verging on like quite nasty, gruesome things, but they can make it so it's palatable in many ways. So you can have quite, youthful audience all the way up. And then you have the genius Tim Burton.
Let's say that's that Tim Burton effect. Yeah.
Yes. And what exactly. And the thing is like, so Tim obviously had been an illustrator. And so he's this incredibly visual director. But the shock was that Tim is also lovely, like the nicest human being. He's a dad. He's kind. He's clever. Like, and so it just seemed to be this kind of, everything seemed to come together in a way that, I thought like maybe I'll have an audience, I'm not sure. And then like I did not expect it to do what it did. And I feel like, Jenna, yes, absolutely. She's out there in front, she's leading the charge. That's what you associate with. But there are all these amazing people in the background working to kind of put this together and bring it to life. And I feel like not enough can be said about those guys either.
That's a great point. Great point. And kudos to that entire team. What makes an actor memorable to you in an audition?
Just
like what jumps out at you?
Just be good. Just be good. The truth is like, look, this is probably my background, but you don't need bells and whistles. And in fact, I find real true power comes from vulnerability and truth. And again, they don't cost anything. And so what I'm looking for is someone who's talented. And for every 100 people that I see, there are maybe 1 or 2, possibly 3 that are especial, those people that are just fire, basically. And that's what I'm looking for. And truthfully, I don't know if you can manufacture that, but I think if you want to maximize on what you're able to bring, then I think because it's art and we're looking at artists, I think having an opinion is important. I think understanding what you want to say with the role is really important. And that seems to be the things that I respond to the most is like, shouldn't matter that you're trying to impress me. It should be that you have something to say and you want to say it.
Yeah.
When I'm pitching for a job, and there would be many pitches where they've gone, yeah, no, you're not for us. But I'll look at a script, I'll read it twice, and I'll be like, okay, this is how I want to paint this picture. This is what I would do with the casting. And it's okay if you don't want to work with me, then go and work with someone who's going to give you the picture that you want. But this is how I see it. But I think it's important that I have an opinion. Yeah, otherwise it doesn't come from anywhere. It doesn't feel
a POV. Good. Yeah, it's almost like you can play a character, but what we're really looking for is you to be yourself, but in the words of this character. And that will kind of come through the camera a little bit. Yes.
Like, okay, we're auditioning for somebody who, who plays the gladiator, who, inspires all of these people to follow you. How much experience do you have in real life? None, obviously. You've never done that before. But what is it in you that would make you believe enough for people to follow? You have that. You have that, whatever it is. Everybody has a past, a life that you feel something for. So what is it? Find that within yourself. That would be, I guess, well, that's how I see it.
Yeah, that would stick out. Are there any books you read to help yourself get a little bit deeper into your career, helped you along the way? Any books you could recommend?
I don't know that I've read many sort of books on the art of casting. I don't know if many exist actually, but I am an avid reader, and we touched on it when we were talking about country music before we started. I am an avid reader, and I have always been an avid reader, and I love stories. More specifically, I love to know more about people, about why people do what they do, about how different upbringings or lives might then change people's perspectives. I'm fascinated by taking apart people's motives. And I think that probably helps me when it comes to casting, because I can take the smallest role and I can be like, oh, do you know why that person is ordering the drink in that way? It's because of this. You know what I mean? So I can kind of like give things more of a life, and I am fascinated, like beyond reason, really. It's embarrassing. I'm fascinated by those tiny roles because I feel like they really inform the bigger world. And I feel like most people just don't care, but I'm obsessive about it.
Is there one or two that just jump to your mind right away? Like books?
I can think of one, I think in series 2 of The Witcher, and it was Barmaid 1 or something. And I'd be like, oh my God, another barmaid, Jesus Christ. Well, like how many barmaids do there need to be? And I remember, okay, so I was like, okay, what town are they in? And I think it was something like Oxenfurt or something. And I was like, okay, so like, where is that on the map? And I remember it was like, by a harbour. I mean, this is really geeky, Chris. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, let's go down the geeky rabbit hole.
I was like, okay, so like a harbour in those days was like a travel port. So it was like a metropolitan like travel port. So we're going to see lots of different people, right, coming to this place because like travel in, travel out, etc. And then I remember like that basically informed this this kind of idea that we wanted somebody. I think I wanted somebody with patois, you know, that kind of like So, and I was like, like in my head, she's like a university student. She's working there to kind of make money. So she's smarter than like you would normally, you know, than we would normally associate with bar wench number one. She's clever. She's got an opinion. She's sort of spicy. Like, let's have some, like, you know, I mean, it's insane. I can go down the rabbit hole for days.
I love that. Okay. So I haven't read The Witcher and now I have to. So
it's good. You should read it. We should just watch the series.
Well, isn't there like a rule that you should read before you watch, or does that ruin it? You should watch before you read. That way the show isn't ruined or whatever.
I think you should watch before you read, and then those characters are in your head rather than the ones that you imagine. Then you're not disappointed.
That is genius. Yep. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch and then read. So I haven't watched the entire series. I've only watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes. So
I'm not holding it against you. That's okay.
I'm going to get into it.
Also. Like, you've got some homework to do, Chris, but that's fine.
Yep. I'm writing down Witcher homework. Homework. Be sure to incorporate the word wench into regular vocabulary. I do love the word wench. I don't know why. Okay. That's perfect. What are the best pieces of advice you've received in your career?
To be honest, I don't think I've received quite enough advice. That's the truth. I feel like I really missed out on having a mentor, but I feel like if I was to give advice at this point, it would be, or I wish I'd told myself, like, you know, then it's like, shut up and listen a bit more. So I guess let's pretend that was given to me and that I learned that lesson like a long time ago. Shut up and listen more. Yeah.
Yep. And I've been told that a lot. And I found that I can take it from people who I know really love me. It's like they really care about me, and I'm rattling on like, hey, Chris, just shut up.
But then also you might not be in charge of a podcast, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
yeah. I picked the right thing to do.
Yeah, you did. This was a good
talking. Is there a mistake that you see actors make in the audition process? What are those biggest mistakes you see, like in the self tapes you see or auditions?
I think the biggest mistakes I've seen are the ones when it's just where you've learned the lines, but you've not done anything with it, or you felt like learning the lines has been the most important thing. Whereas I feel like mostly across the board, everyone's good, you know, all actors are good, really. But really what you should be constantly kind of looking for is like what you can uniquely bring to make that different. And, or not even different, doesn't have to be different, but it has to be like linked to something of your own experience, you know?
Yeah, that's a great tip. Because it's easy to think that the lines are going to be the most important.
Of course.
Thing to know.
And they are to some extent. I mean, it always begins with the writing.
But do you have tolerance for somebody who is giving a great performance but doesn't hit every word?
Do I have what for it?
Tolerance for that. Is that cool?
Tolerance.
If they're improving their own self-tape, but they're great?
Do you know, I have tolerance really for actors in general. I feel like it's really hard what actors do, and I feel like it's gotten harder since the pandemic, with people kind of being in their own space in their own head, and actually you've forgotten that to act is literally to do, and it has to come out. You know, like it can't just be this. You had this idea in your head, and then it's swirled around and around. So I feel like I think anyone who wants to be an actor, like, is it just like an extraordinary thing to do? It's very hard. You get very little back. But I feel like the mistake that you make as an actor, or as any artist really, is when you try and please somebody else. That's really what that's the foundation of of honestly how I feel. You know, I feel like every artist has to be individual, and I think the bigger voice you have in it, when you have something that propels you, that's more important than anything else. You know,
right? And so you would then say, look, you didn't follow the rules because here was the line that you were supposed to say.
Yeah,
but you were great, and we're going to prioritize your greatness over the fact that you didn't follow this rule.
Yes, or there's something there. There's enough there for me to want to note you or think of you for something else, or like you've taken a risk and you've shown me your talent, and now it's my job, if you're not right for this, to find you something else. Because also, you know, and this is because literally this is what we do, a casting director's memory for actors is huge. I mean, you won't know this because I don't think you watched it, but like season 1 of The Witcher has an actress called Jodie May in, and I had seen Jodie May 17 years before in a show on stage, and I'd remembered her from then. And there are some things that just stay with you. Good performances are one of them, but we'll remember you. So if we're like, oh my gosh, they were great, but they weren't right for that, we will remember you 10, 12 years later for something else. So but it's hard to understand that when you're an actor and you're like, you know, they've seen me, but they haven't seen me for the last 5 years. Obviously they thought I was rubbish. That's just not necessarily the case. But there are also the thing that really blows my mind is that we have a thing called Spotlight over here. I don't know if you have an equivalent in the States, but basically it's like a database of all the actors essentially. Right. There are 70,000 in the UK alone. We're a tiny island. Right. I can't even imagine how many there are in Hollywood.
Right. Yeah. It's, I mean, all you have to do is go to IMDb Pro and you'll see that, you know, there's 20 million people basically trying to do something in film. They're not all actors, but there's 20 million people trying to do something in film. I mean, and you know, that's an enormous number. So we throw those numbers around. We throw around big numbers so much in the media that you lose a sense of how big a number is.
Yeah.
And I always relate it back because we'll say millions and billions and trillions. Like we're going through this sort of debt ceiling thing here in the U.S. where we're trying to get into debt into the trillions so that we can keep the economy going. And we just throw those numbers around and don't realize what an enormity that is. And I always think about the lottery. We have the lottery here where you can pay money and like win a bunch of money. And it's like, I always thought the lottery was like a tax for people who are bad at math. You know, like,
because you have to spend it to make it.
Right. Yeah. It's like here, there are people who spend like $1,000 a month on the lotto, and they just don't realize that their chances are one. Like, what is it? What does 1 in 10 million mean? Yeah. And that just doesn't quite hit home because the number's too big and they can't think about like, oh, wow. I actually have
why not me? Ahead.
Yeah, why not me? Right. I actually have a piece of artwork right outside this studio, Sophie. Right. And it's called Tim Urban created it. Okay. So check out Tim Urban. He has a blog called Wait But Why. It's unbelievable. And one of the pieces he created was called 1 in a Million. And it's a poster that and a piece of artwork that has 1 million dots on it. Wow. And one of them is red. And then the challenge is to find the red one. And you can't do it.
Have you found it?
Yes.
How long did it take you to find it?
It took me all day.
Whoa.
Like you would think that the red dot would just stand out, But its point is to show you how many a million is.
Yeah.
And if you're 1 in a million, like you can't even see the red dot against a bunch of black dots on a white page.
Yeah.
That's how small that dot is and how hard it is to see a red dot if there's a million black dots or 999,000, black dots around it.
Which almost brings us back to the original point, which was like, you want to be the red dot, right?
Yep. Yeah.
You don't want to be the red dot. No one wants to be the black dot. You want to be the one that stands out. Well, it doesn't stand out as it happens, but I mean,
Yeah. And it's a weird thing to get because when you're to understand, because when you're in school, before you turn into an adult, you'll do anything to fit in. And then you become an adult and you realize, oh crap, I'm supposed to fit out.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband, who's an actor and who went to drama school.
Yep, shout out to Jim. Husband Jim.
Shout out to Jim. You've done your research. Shout out to Jim. We were talking just the other night actually about the fact that, he was in drama school and he really believed, and this is like, he's a really great actor actually, so this is like maybe does him a disservice, but he said he really believed, and they all really believed that they were going to be the next big thing, yet their year was the best. They had the most talented actors. They were going to, change the industry. They'd all be stars. Yeah. And then the reality of them coming out into an industry that was like not really interested. It's like an incredibly hard thing a very, very hard thing to kind of to accept. First of all, you auditioned for however many drama schools and you've been one of the ones that has been selected, but then to come out and be like, oh, this isn't going to quite be what I what I hoped is a hard thing. And then to keep going,
Yeah. It can get you. Yeah, it can really get you. And now I think with what's happening with like sort of this, forget who quoted this, but they said we're today in 2023, we're like in an epidemic of loneliness and hopelessness.
Yeah.
Just as a society.
By social media. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, maybe it was Tristan Harris. I don't know, but I think when you combine that with a job where the default is that you get told no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to have the right mentality for that, for sure. Let's assume that there's one person who really wants to be a casting director directly after this conversation ends.
Don't do it. No, I'm joking.
Can you don't do it? I don't need the competition.
I'm already trying to do it. Okay, give up. No, yes. Let's assume someone is crazy enough to want to be a casting director. I love this.
What would be the starter kit? So like, can you and this is kind of something we do on this podcast where we get down to the actual details. What are the brands, the models? Like, what do you need to be a casting director if you're going to start from scratch? What should they go out and buy? What's the starter kit?
Okay. So first of all, the good news is you don't need to pay for anything. That's the good news.
Okay.
Yes, you don't need to. The second thing is, if you do have money, there is a course at what we call the NFTS, which is the National Film and Television School. There is a casting course that you can go on for a year, I think it is. And it's like not every day. I think it's something like Wednesday nights and something else. And you can, and they'll also, they help place you once you've graduated. So they can place you for like short periods of time with other casting directors, etc. So you can get experience. That's the first thing. That, by the way, was not there when I started out, but I think it's a really amazing resource started by Gina J and Shaheen Baig and the NFTS.
Okay.
But failing that, what you need to start, and there's obvious things that you can write to casting directors and see if you can get placements there if somebody's looking for a job. But really, what you need to start, and what nobody else can give you, is start to watch things as much as you can: TV, film, theatre, if you can afford it. Because what you need to do eventually, and it can take years, is you need to start knowing who's out there in terms of actors. The more you can kind of digest that, the better. But I mean, that would have been my absolute favorite job ever in the world, to have an assignment of sitting down watching TV. I would have thought that was absolutely brilliant. So, but really that watching and remembering and trying to follow people's careers who you like and seeing what capable of doing, that will never change throughout your entire duration of casting. You will always be looking and learning and trying to remember. That's like a constant thing. So that's what I would do if you're trying to get into it, and just do it. Just write to as many people as you can, consistently trying to get more work. People are always looking for great assistants and associates. So I feel like, we're still not the glamorous actors of the industry. So there's space for more, basically.
That's a great place to start. So let's see. So just for those at home, take a course. Like you could take a casting course now. You can also, if you're in the right area, go to the NFTS to get some education. Watch and study. That's something you don't need anybody else for, so that you know who's out there and you start to know them by name. I think also you're developing taste when you do that. So watch and study, you develop your taste, what you like. Can you identify talent? Did you see someone where you're watching a Disney sitcom? Everyone in it is completely horrendous, except this one kid is acting his butt off in this terrible formulaic script. You can start to see those things and then write to find these jobs. And basically, in other words, put yourself out there. Don't be shy about that. Can you tell us about a time that you had to push for an actor that the production wasn't sure about or wasn't sold on?
I'm just having to think. Sorry.
No, please.
And only because I'm wondering, well, if I say, does that make them look bad? You know what I mean?
Well, you don't have to name names.
Yeah.
If you can just tell the story without naming names, that's okay too. Yeah. Or if you want to name names, you can.
Yes. So, yes, there's definitely been times when you've had experiences where they've not quite seen the talent. Maybe it's not popped on the tape. So we've had two recent examples of this. One where they looked at the tape and they were like, I'm not sure. And I was like, you need to come in to the recall session. You need to see them live in the room and you need to feel what I'm feeling. And they were like, okay, but I'm not sure. And then we brought the team in and they sat there and they watched it. And she was like, oh yeah, you were right. I've not seen that before. And I was like, no, but I did. That's why you've got me. So that's worked out. And in both cases, like in the second one, we had to take them to see a show they were in before they really saw the talent. So they weren't sure, they weren't completely, sold. They were slightly on the fence. So we took them to see a show that person was in, and they were like, yeah, okay, that's who it is. So sometimes it's also about them being in the room, them understanding the chemistry and the energy of that person. And also when you know deep in your heart that you are right, you do have to push. But I did have somebody say to me once, you can only push them 3 times, because if you push them more than that, they'll push back against you and you'll feel the wrath of them. So I always thought that was kind of interesting in terms of a psychology of working with strong personalities.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. It makes me wonder, what's the most unusual audition you've ever seen?
Well, we've seen some crazy stuff. We've asked people to do some crazy stuff.
Right. Well, so can you give us one of these, or maybe the most unusual?
I don't have this story. This isn't my story, but absolutely dreadful circumstance was when somebody was casting a play, and in the play there's a reference to that man's genitalia being large, and to get the job, that casting director had to see it. Yep. And I listen, I'm a prude at the best of times. I would have found that intolerable. I could not have done it. I could not have done it. Even the thought of it is making me go red. You are asked to do hilarious things, but there's everything from kind of dance calls to sing, all sorts of things that you have to ask for a variety of skills. But that was my nightmare. I was like, I'm so glad that wasn't me. I don't think I could have done that.
Yeah, it feels like if you go in there and then, your member isn't large enough for the part, that you could pull a George Costanza and say, hey, I just got out of the pool.
No. I'm just I mean, like, it's just wild to me. That would have been just the worst. The worst. Do you remember that one? I don't know if you're a fan of Friends, but that one where Joey Tribbiani then also had to fashion himself. Oh no, no, no! Get me out of here.
Yeah, it's like you think that you think that's me? You think that's me? That's not me. That's not me. Give me a second.
But we've really gone downhill here, Chris. We started high, and now we're in the gutter. We're in the gutter,
but we've never had a better time.
Quite right.
How significant of a problem are these fake casting calls?
Yeah,
like what are the red flags that inexperienced actors should look for? How do you identify a fake casting call? What are the characteristics of a legitimate casting agency, I guess would be the question.
Well, that's a really good question and timely. I had a call from my agent a couple of months ago about a casting call under my name, and it definitely wasn't for me. And they'd been asking children to go along and audition, and seemingly,
oh wow,
yeah, it was really dreadful. And the thing is like, so what happened was a parent of one of these kids called my agent and said, is Sophie Holland doing these casting things? Because we've gone and auditioned several times, but something seems a bit off. And I just remember my blood running completely cold. And then to find these people is really hard, because they're on Facebook, or they're on social media, and they're setting up fake accounts, and then there's no way of getting hold of them. It's terrifying. And the thing is like, the truth is you just have to get your wits about you, because these are people who maybe don't have agents to kind of validate who it is they're auditioning for. But, the chances of these things leading to a real job are incredibly slim, as you can imagine. And how do you regulate something like that? I mean, and much with what we've kind of alluded to, like, casting directors don't have a blue tick, like they're not famous enough, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's impossible to kind of, how do you say whether or not that person is who they say they are? And you just have to be really smart. You just have to use your instincts. You have to do your research. I mean, now if you search for me, you can find pictures of me online, so you know what I look like. But I mean, yeah, it's really hard and really scary, because they're vulnerable situations. They're vulnerable situations anyway, auditions. So,
Yeah, I was kind of thinking to myself, what are they getting out of the fake audition? But I think you kind of alluded to it when I think they're filming them. And then they're able to take the kids auditioning for a certain part and sell it.
That's what it is.
I think that's got to be it. I think I would follow the money right there. I don't think they're really trying to cast these people in shows. I think they're just trying to get their tapes. And like, how do I get these tapes without me filming it?
Shit.
Yeah. So that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. If you're a parent of a kid, a child actor, spend the $99 to get on IMDb Pro and look up the person and validate. Or have someone in film. Everybody's got one person that's trying to do something or is doing something in entertainment. Like, have them validate, because you just don't want to be part of that. No,
you don't want to be part of that. Or even like, look up that person's email address and email them legitimately and say, is this your casting call? Because guaranteed the casting director will respond. And you're right. I mean, I dread to think, but it's worth even just spending the time to find out if somebody's legit.
Absolutely. Because even if you're an adult, like, once you send that off, you don't get it back. Like, it's out there. And then what? If it went to a fake person, then what? And then it's like, whoa. We've talked about it throughout. It's been a through line in this entire conversation, and you've been so cool with your time. I just have one or two more questions. We'll get you out of here. But this is a big one, so I wanted to kind of save it towards the end. The lack of recognition for casting directors. The Academy of Motion Pictures, Art Sciences, they don't give out Oscars for casting, despite the fact that the organization has a casting directors branch made up of 3 casting directors.
Oh, who are the
led by,
things you know?
well, it's led by Academy Governor Kim Taylor Coleman, who I guess is your next phone call,
Yeah.
who,
Yes.
who's been, and she's been a casting director for over 20 years.
Right.
BAFTA, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, does provide an award for casting. So what do you feel about this difference? And is it just as simple as a phone call to Kim Taylor Coleman? And hi, Kim, if you're listening, to get her to change these rules? Why aren't we recognizing casting directors the way we should?
You know, honestly, it's one of these. I mean, like, listen, it's hilarious that you were just like, well, what would be the point of getting these people to audition? I am equally bamboozled as to why they would not want to give recognition, because I'm like, is it because the producers want the recognition of casting these people? Like, that's not a thing. That didn't happen.
Right.
Like is that it, that they don't want to give power away? I really truly don't know. We have all these casting announcements. It would be so easy to say casting by that's all. So I truly don't understand the angle of why it's not happening. I don't have an answer. And I mean, like, the BAFTA one's only been going for a couple of years, but the Olivier's don't have one yet. The Oscars don't have one. And yet, for example, when we talked about The Little Mermaid, that casting is so pivotal to change the change in the industry that we're all looking to see. It was brought about by a casting director, but what, you don't want to acknowledge them? Like, I don't understand it.
I think the way to go is to start where the Grammy Awards start, the music awards. They have a series of awards that are non-televised. Okay. But you get the award.
Yes.
And then, so for just famously, for example, hip hop started that way.
Right.
You couldn't imagine that now.
Yeah.
But when hip hop started, it was a non-televised award. It was insignificant. Right. But the fact that somebody fought for that to be an award, it then started there, and now it's become probably one of the most important awards of the night.
Yeah.
Casting could start that way. Yeah. Not to say it'll ever be more important than best film or best actor or whatever, but it could start as, hey, we have these awards. They're untelevised. You do get an award for it. You do get the money and the gift bag and everything else. And the trophy.
We all just want the gift bag. Let's be honest.
The gift bag. Let's be real. Yeah.
But like, even with is it the Golden Globes or is it the Emmys? I can't remember. Maybe the Emmys. They have like, are they the same thing? Is an Emmy and a Golden Globe the same thing? I'm really I didn't know that.
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. But they have like the Golden Globes have like the craft awards, and that would encompass casting and costume and everything else. But I find it's kind of like, try doing it without a casting director and see how you get on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you wouldn't get on very well. So I think, listen, I'm on Team Sophie now. Dadgummit. I'm fired up now. I had it as a question, and now this is real. I don't have a lot of pull, but I am in the Producers Guild. Yeah. And I will see if somebody knows Kim, and I'll say, Kim, what do we got to do?
Ask around. And the thing is like, look, this is what I honestly believe. Any casting director worth their salt, anyone can rock up a name of very famous people to play the leads. Mm-hmm. That is not what a casting director skill. That's not what the skill set is. The skill set is to build your world out with brilliant actors, and that's not a skill that everyone has.
Right.
It's just not.
Right. From the extras up.
From the extras, I mean, they also need an award. The extras is a different skill and brilliant in and of itself. But I mean, yeah, wild, absolutely wild.
Yeah, we have an actor named Chris Green that we're close with here on this podcast, and he did Queen of the South, and most recently, and he has this big take on how to become a scripted actor, an actor with lines, a speaking role, from starting in an extra, because that's how he did it.
That's how he did it.
Yeah, and there's this whole almost course he has on. Well, he does teach acting, but there's this method he has for being wallpaper that stands out.
Yes,
which is how you get the perfect extra.
Yeah, perfect. I listened to it. It's like he did an 8-minute thing of yours, and I listened to it, and I thought, like, a super smart guy. But that's exactly. I mean, like, you want those one-liners to be like that. You want them to blend into the scene, but carry it. You know,
but carry it. Yeah. Shout out to Chris Green, and if you want his services, he has a course called Life of an Actor, I believe. So yeah, very, very cool. And we're not going to end on a down note. It doesn't have to be a down note, but we mentioned it before, and it's becoming so important in the lives of filmmakers, actors, anyone in entertainment, period. And you mentioned it before because social media is playing a big role in that, but also just there's a zeitgeist going on where we even brought on Dr. Mark Goulston last year to talk to us about how to get yourself out of a hole when you're in a dark place with your mental health. And so I'm curious, have you ever been in a dark place as a casting director with your career, even going back to your acting days? And if so, how did you get out of it? What tools did you use?
Yeah, I mean, and there can be many dark holes taking many different forms. So actually, I'm literally looking at a book here. I'll show it to you. Okay. I suffered from burnout quite severely. So my husband for Christmas bought me
So the book is 7 Steps.
7 Steps from Burnout to Happiness. And they're all things you know, by the way. But like, you know, like, for example, I think the first step is like exercise. And you know that, like, you know, or exercise creates endorphins, like you feel good. But when you're in a hole, you don't want to do it. You know what I mean? You just want to lie in bed and like go to sleep. And you know what I mean? And I feel like, I don't know if I have advice really, because I feel like everything that will get you out of it, you will know. People will tell you. People around you will tell you. But I would say fight. Just fight to find your inner equilibrium. You know what I mean? To not be up or down. Just fight to find a steady place to plant your feet in and feel like you're grounded. And you know what I mean? Because I feel like this industry can really buffet you all the time, get you pushed from pillar to post. And I feel like you have to fight to be your own calm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And to your point about just knowing, that is so true.
Yeah. You just know, of course you know. Of course you know what's going to make you feel better, but you don't want to do it. You don't want to eat well, or you don't want to exercise. You don't want to do it. Yeah. But you have to fight. You have to fight to do that. And also, you also have to remember, and this like really brings us back to the beginning, is like, it's not real. This industry isn't real. You don't do it for anyone. Like, you know what I mean? If you might get validation, you might not. Like, you have to find out who you are and like put your stake in the ground and not be buffeted around if you can. Yeah.
Mankind needs to be reminded, not told. Yeah. That's the whole thing. Because it's smart. Like, you know what to do, but can you remind yourself? I'd also recommend, strangely, Atomic Habits by James Clear, because learning how to take things that you don't want to do and simplify them until they're habit is really powerful. Like, so you know it's going to make you happy, but you don't want to do it. How do you make it simple? You know, you need exercise, to your point, Sophie. But exercise is complicated. Which workout do I do? What instead of that, simplify that. You walk in, you do the 10 machines that are sitting there right in front of you, and you do it every day. You don't do anything but those 10 machines. Yeah. You do 10 reps times 4 sets of those 10 machines. And then you're going to get 400 movements, and you're done in 45 minutes. Yeah. But you did it every day.
Strap on a pair of trainers and go for a walk. Get out. Lift your head up. Breathe. Like you're right. Keep it simple. Do what you can. Just start somewhere. I feel like that's the important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And with burnout, decision overload, like you only have so much willpower for that. Yeah. Years ago, I told my wife, do not ask me. I didn't say it in this tone because I'm smart and I want to stay in my relationship. Yeah. But I said, don't worry about asking me what I want for dinner every night. Yes. I want whatever you make. Yeah. Whatever you've not made anything bad in 17 years. Yeah. Just make it.
That's so because literally Jim and I had that conversation and I'm in a bad headspace when he asked me a question and I want to kill him. You know what I mean? I'm like, I know that this is not a rational reaction to what you're asking me, but one question is like it's the straw that's breaking a camel's back. and I can't, like, he's like, what time will you be home tonight? I will cut you if you ask me that again. You know, this is not a rational response. And then, I'm in a bad place and it's time to take care, Sorry, Jim.
No, that is perfect. I relate to that so much. And that's been sort of the tone and feeling and vibe of this whole conversation. Yeah. This has been an amazing, incredible. So I can't thank you enough for your time. Can you tell everybody, it's our pleasure. We'll have to do a round two. Can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media, on the internet, maybe see some of your work?
Yes, please come to my Instagram, so aptly entitled SHC Casting. We've discussed that before. And I think my Twitter handle is Sophie Holland Casting, but I don't really remember. But I'm somewhere on there.
Yeah, I followed you on Twitter. Twitter's.
I'll follow you back. That's great.
Yeah, it was like Twitter was crappy, then crappier, and now it's on the upswing.
Do you think?
Oh, I know. You can now upload like 2-hour videos directly to Twitter.
Okay, I need to get back on it.
Podcaster or you're a creator, like you can just upload that immediately. Now you can have subscribers. People can pay you for your content, literally pay you for your tweets, or whatever it is you create. Like it's, you pay for the blue check, but the payment comes with, I would say, 3 or 4x more features than you had before.
Oh,
so
really?
It's not like you're just paying for the right to be exclusive or somebody or whatever.
You actually get your money.
You get a ton of stuff if you use it.
Okay.
If you use it right. So find me on Twitter too, Flaming Your Heart. And I already followed you, so you'll see that when you open your Twitter next. We'll end on this. I'm looking for a new hobby.
Yeah.
Should I master rhythmic dancing with colored ribbons or the trampoline?
Rhythmic dancing with ribbons. And I say that because every Tuesday I do a tap class and I'm dreadful, but it makes me feel great.
And how does it work? Do they just the ribbons part and the rhythmic dancing? Like, how does it work and what role do the ribbons play?
Well, the ribbons, I feel like, are an expression of really how your soul feels inside. But they're bright and colourful. You give them a wave. What's not going to cheer you up about that?
So if you see someone dancing with all black ribbons, then you know to run the other way.
Yeah. Well, listen, lest we forget the very iconic Wednesday dance. That is she's in all black and she's going for some old school moves, Yeah. But I also feel like just dancing is a really good thing.
It's true. It is true. And that is a viral dance, by the way. So,
That's viral dance.
That is viral dance.
You know.
Yeah. All ties in with the mental health and just the entire habit building and vibe of this conversation. Sophie.
Thanks for having me.
You're amazing. And don't be a stranger. If you're ever in Nashville, like I told you again, key to the city. Okay. For you and the team, we'll make it happen. And if I'm across the pond, I'll find you to get your best advice on a couch to lay on.
Do that. I'm also going to take you to my DAP class. Take you out for dinner. We'll do the whole thing. It'd be fabulous.
Done. Talk to you soon. Be good.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
You've been listening to the Make It podcast. For more information about this episode, please visit our website at www.bonsai.film. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative, and the show will pop right up. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at _Bonsai Creative, and on Facebook and LinkedIn by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative. In addition, you can provide feedback to us via email at contact@bonsai.film. You now have the opportunity to support the production of this podcast. If you love Make It and are a true fan of what we are trying to accomplish in the indie film community, please consider supporting our Patreon page. We spend a combined 35 hours a week producing each episode. We do this with a small team of go-getters that are passionate about film
and connecting people with similar interests across the globe. And we have lots of goodies in store for our supporters, including bonus content, exclusive swag, and discounts and freebies to private film events. If that sounds like something you can get behind, donations start at only $5 monthly. And, of course, if you're looking to take a big step toward your film's financial success, go to www.bonsai.film and click on Services to explore our unrivaled approach to film marketing. You have everything to gain. Until next time, be better, be creative, be engaged, and thank you for listening.